Welcome to the Nickels and Dimes Finding Financial Freedom podcast. I'm your host, Natalie Kime, and I look forward each and every week to bringing you amazing content that will provide you with a financial education, will support you on your financial journey, and most importantly, help you to find financial freedom. I hope you enjoy today's episode. Welcome to the Nickels and Dimes Finding Financial Freedom podcast. I'm your host, Natalie Kime, and today I want to take a little time to, number one, wish you all a Merry Christmas. By the time this plays, Christmas will have been last week, but I hope that you got to spend time with family, friends, enjoy eating some good food, maybe playing some games, watching some Christmas videos, serving in your community, giving to those who maybe were less fortunate this year. Whatever it is that was most important to you, I hope you got to spend some time doing that and you got to really feel the spirit of Christmas. But here we are, a week away, less than a week away from the new year. It'll be New Year's when this episode drops. And so where are we all at? Likely to some regard, looking back at 2024 and evaluating everything that we did and didn't accomplish that we wanted to. And based on that, hopefully planning for 2025 and creating the year that we want for ourselves. So what does that look like for you? Hopefully, in amongst your goals are some financial goals, some things that you want to accomplish, whether it's paying down some debt, starting to save some more, diversify your portfolio, add some more products in there, determine whether or not you're aligned for retirement when you want to be able to pull that trigger, whatever that looks like. I hope that part of your goal process is looking at your finances and strategically setting goals around getting yourself closer to where you want to be in 2025. And so I found a great article. Let me reference it. It's actually an article by T. Rowe Price that I found that talks about some things you can do, actually, not just in January, but all throughout the year. Some bullet points that you can do each month to help you set yourself up for the financial responsibilities that you have, as well as moving towards your future. So let's jump in with January. Number one, set those financial goals. What is it that you want to accomplish financially this year? Is it getting you closer to being in a position where you can build your financial fortress, or is it adding to what you already have? So once you have an idea of what those goals are, I want you to draft a budget based on that. So not only what you already have in place, but add in those things that include, or those goals that you set, include those into your budget so that they're top of mind, that every time you're reviewing your budget, there's a line item for those. The best way to make sure something happens is to get it down on paper and have it somewhere that it continuously reminds you of what it is you're trying to accomplish with any kind of goal. And so actually adding those line items into your working budget sheet is a really good way to do that. You just automatically calculate it within your expenses every month to set aside that additional savings or to pay down those credit cards a little bit quicker or whatever it might be. Just put it in there. And that gives you a better chance of being successful in taking action in that area and actually accomplishing that goal. And another thing I want to say is look, you're looking at your budget every month that you tick that thing off, that you paid that extra 100 to the credit card, that you put that extra 100 into savings, whatever it is. I want you to give yourself a pat on the back because you are taking one step towards creating what you want to. It may be really small steps to begin with, but that's okay. It may be large steps, in which case pat yourself on the back twice. But it's important for us to celebrate making progress towards our goals that are important to us. So I want you to do that on a monthly basis when you're reviewing your completed budget for the month. I want you to do that on a quarterly basis. And I want you just to Be excited about the progress you're making. Give yourself some grace because we all know every single year, somehow, some way, an emergency or two may creep up and it may impact our ability to maybe tick that thing off in a certain month. An extra expense came down the pipeline or whatever. Um, you know, it's just life. Life will be lifing, and here we are just trying to scramble through it sometimes. So give yourself some grace in the process, but make sure those goals you set are realistic. Don't set a goal to save every extra penny you have, because chances are you're going to significantly fumble that along the way if you're trying to save everything you have. But what if you saved an extra 10%? What if you saved an extra $100? Even if it's $25, whatever that is, put it into that budget as a line item and track it and celebrate it each step along the way. The other thing I want y'all to think about in January is how to reduce your expenses. Like, look at those line items of expenses you have that are wants more than they are needs. Is there something you can cut out completely? Is there something you can cut back a little bit? Are there 3 or 4 things you can cut back a little bit to give yourself a little more money to go towards the financial goals that you have for the year, to maybe even take bigger steps than you thought you could? Okay, so January, setting those goals, drafting a budget based on your goals, and then also looking at, as you draft that budget, how can you reduce some of your expenses? And if you can't, that's okay, but be honest with yourself. Do you need everything that you are spending money on? And make the adjustments that you need to make there or that you can make there. Okay, so February, let's take a look at our overall portfolio. Are there ways that you can maybe simplify your investments, or what's another way to say that? Ways that you can just streamline things or update things. And what do I mean by that? If you have an old 401k sitting out there, that account is no longer being managed actively within the group of accounts for the employees that are still with that company. So if you have an old 401k, a lump sum of money somewhere, definitely sit down with a financial professional like myself. And if you don't have one, feel free to reach out. I'd love to have a conversation with you. If you do, get in touch with your financial professional and set up a time to review your budget, those new goals you set, and take a look at that old 401k or that lump sum of money you have and get some suggestions, some options of where might be a good place to put that money. I am currently working with a ton of people when it comes to old 401ks, to pensions, rolling that money into a place that it is protected, it is growing, and it can provide a lifetime income, meaning you'll never outlive your money. So make sure that you're doing an audit of all your financial accounts. Are they active? Do you have an annuity that has annuitized? Meaning if it was a 10-year annuity and it's been 10 years, does it make sense to move that somewhere else that is possibly getting a new return in a different kind of annuity? Or if you're getting closer to retirement, provide some other options within a different kind of annuity. Sit down with your financial professional and assess your overall portfolio and just see, hey, I'm doing these extra things through my goals. I built some things into my budget, but I want to look at what I already have. And is it in the right place? And is it doing what I think it is? Is it going to get me closer to my ultimate financial goals or not? So take a look at the old accounts you have, streamlining those accounts that you've had for a while, making sure there's not somewhere better that you could put that money to help reach your long-term financial goals. And look, automate some of those processes. If you've built saving an extra $100 a month into your budget, set that up as an automatic transfer into your savings account. Or if you're savings through a financial product, set it up, increase that draft amount that's going into that product every month by that $100. If it's paying an extra $100 on your credit cards, increase your auto payment to that credit card by that $100 so it's locked in and it's just planned for you. It just happens automatically. It's not something you have to think about. It makes it a lot easier to stay on track when those things are just happening behind the scenes. You built them into your processes. Okay, so here we are. It's March. What should our focus be on March? Well, preparing for tax time. Get organized. Have you received all the documents you need to file your taxes? Make sure that you have last year's forms and records pulled together. Make sure that if you haven't received any documents or you can't remember a login to an account to download a document you need, that you're reaching out to whoever you need to reset a password, or you're reaching out to an employer or somebody if you need a 1099 or you didn't get your W-2. Do that in March. Like, start looking through what you have and getting organized the first week in March so that if you have to do any of those follow-ups, if you have to chase down any information, you have plenty of time to do it before April 15th gets here and all of a sudden you're in a panic because something's missing or you can't access something you need. And then, of course, on April 15th, even though we're talking about March, on April 15th, you want to make sure your taxes are submitted no later than April 15th. And the sooner you can get those done and processed, the sooner that you can get that weight off your shoulders for 2025. If you're getting a return, heck, I always like to pull my records together, honestly, at the end of January. And if I can file sooner, I'm filing in February, because if you file April 15th, you're going to be in that backlog of people who filed late, and it may take you longer to get that return. And of course, remember, if you owe money, you need to submit at least that estimated amount you're going to owe with your taxes, or file an extension for that. You don't want to let that slip. If you owe money, you want to make sure that you're taking care of that with your taxes. So hopefully you've been saving for that. Hopefully you're in a position where you're not surprised by something and in a panic trying to make it happen. But worst case, make sure your taxes are filed, that you're communicating, sending at least some kind of payment to the IRS. And if you need to set up a payment plan, that you're getting that structured right away. But ideally, you've been making sure, if you're working with a CPA, if you're a business owner, ideally you've been paying that recommended amount every quarter, and you're in a position to just pay this fourth quarter's amount based on your tax return and be good for the year. But look, if you trip up a little bit, if you're not in the position you need to be with your taxes, if you get a surprise that you weren't expecting, make sure you have a conversation with your tax professional and your financial professional to set yourself up better next year so that you're ahead of the game when it comes to your taxes. All right. In April, let's focus on improving your financial standing. So if you got a tax return, what can you do with that? Can you add that to the emergency fund you're building? Can you pay down some additional debt with that? Can you put that into an investment account that you already have? Look at the opportunities to save that additional money and get yourself just one step closer to your financial goals. Another thing that's a great idea in April is check your credit report. You can access your credit reports once a year for free. You can just go online and Google free credit report, and there will be a whole bunch of different options you can go through. But it's always a good idea, at least annually, to be sitting down and going through line by line your credit report to make sure that everything that should be there is there, and that nothing that shouldn't be there isn't, so that if there's a discrepancy, you can address it right away, and get that process started to have it removed or updated, whatever that might be. Another thing to do in April, review your debt. Consider targeting your old debt repayments. So if one of your goals for 2025 was not tackling your debt, take a look at it in April. Are you in a position to tackle that debt. Or maybe it was a goal and you get to April and you're looking and you're like, oh, I have a little more than I thought, or that tax return can help me in this area, like I mentioned before. Are you in the position to take a little bit bigger bite out of your debt? And how can you plan that into your budget? Utilize that tax return. Maybe you can pay something off with that. And look, at the end of the day, whenever you can pay something off, it feels really great, right? So take a look at that, make some adjustments. I mean, this is the beginning of the second quarter of the year anyway. It's a great time to assess your progress for first quarter and see, do I need to tweak my goals, or can I make more progress than I honestly thought at the first of the year, and make whatever adjustments that you need to. So, two great ideas for April: checking your credit report and reviewing your debt. So in May, focus on education. Focus on areas of financial education that you'd like to grow your knowledge. Reach out to your financial professional or to myself. Listen to podcasts like this one that give you more information all the time about the financial landscape that's out there. Options of things that you could utilize in your portfolio that you might not be, and learn about those products. Ask questions, get informed, get that education so that, like I always talk about, whatever your decisions you're making are educated decisions. Those are the best decisions, especially when it comes to your money. If there's an area you've been wanting to grow your portfolio and you haven't really looked at it, you didn't know if you were ready yet, sit down with somebody that can talk through that with you and see if you actually are ready, or help set a timeline for when you will be ready to take that next step in building out your financial portfolio and stepping that much closer to financial freedom. Help your kids succeed financially. Look for opportunities to educate your children, whether they're adult children or they're young children. There are amazing games out there. There's I think it's called the cash flow. Oh, maybe it's just Cash Flow by Robert Kiyosaki. That's a great game that can teach kids the fundamentals of personal finance. Even playing Monopoly, it gives your kids an idea of the things they're going to face when adulthood comes around. Buying property, improving property, paying taxes, all the different things that come along in that game of Monopoly. That's a great game to play, but don't just play it with your kids. Have conversations about how those things in life are real, and allow them to ask some questions. And it's okay if you don't have the answer to all their questions. You can write them down and then do some research or reach out to a financial professional. There's also some great books available that are really easy reads, even for teenagers, to understand fundamentals of personal finance that can really benefit them. And honestly, a lot of kids start working in their teenage years. So why not give them a leg up when they first start working, of having a good financial education to start setting goals, making decisions around things like that. And then, you know what? There's some great books out there for adults too. And if you want some suggestions, you can always reach out to me through the link in the podcast and ask me. I have some great PDF copies of some financial books, even some other podcasts that are amazing out there. My company, Universal Wealth, has an incredible podcast called Unlock Your Mind. And they talk about not only mindset things that can grow your mind, but things about entrepreneur, finances, different areas you might be interested in that all somehow still link back into creating financial flexibility and freedom for yourself and your family. So if you want some suggestions, some blogs, any kind of financial topics that maybe you should research, feel free to reach out or talk to the people that you know. Talk to your financial professional and ask them what they would recommend. It's always good to take a little bit of time to make sure that you understand everything that's available. If there's anything new on the landscape you should be looking into, and just grow your own knowledge as well. All right, so here we are at June. What are we doing in June? Let's get prepared to do our mid-year checkup. You want to sit down at the end of June and look, assess, how have I done the first half of this year? Am I on track or am I ahead of game? Am I behind? And if I am behind, why? Has it been, me making not the best decisions financially or not following through on my goals and commitments to myself? Has it been emergencies and crazy things popping up that were completely unexpected? Doing that assessment on what things are moving you closer to your goal or holding you back from it are like that information is so important to know, because then you can make some adjustments. You can tweak things a little bit to get yourself back on track still, potentially by the end of the year. So take time to look at what's happened in the first 6 months of the year and be honest with yourself. Is my budget totally out of whack? Am I overspending just because I'm overspending? I'm focusing more on my wants than my needs. I'm focusing more on now than my long-term goals. Have those conversations with yourself and plug into somebody that can help you, a financial professional who maybe can make some recommendations on how maybe you need to just take a little bit smaller steps than you were trying to at the first of the year and create healthier financial habits before you try to make leap and bound changes in your financial future. So, whatever that may be, take a look at that, assess it. And if you are on track, oh my gosh, celebrate yourself, because it is, look, everything in the world is always telling us to spend, spend, spend. And then the emergencies happen. And then the kids need this. And then somebody gets injured, somebody gets sick. You have medical bills you weren't planning on. If you are on track, if you're in a situation where you've set yourself up to be able to handle all of those things that can come your way, it's really important to give yourself credit for the work that you've done and the position you've gotten yourself in. And if you're on the flip side where you're buried underneath that, it's okay. You can reset and you can restart. You absolutely can reset and you can restart. So again, back to what I said in the beginning, give yourself some grace. Next, take a look at your assets, the overall allocation. What kind of financial products are your money in? How close are you to retirement? How close are your kids to going to college? How close are you to being able to buy that investment property or whatever it is you want to do next? Take a look at where your money's at. Take a look at if you're aligned to take that next big step, or how close that you are, what else you need to do to get there. So make sure you're also looking at, if you have stocks and bonds, what's the mix of that? If you're putting into your 401k, are you saving money tax free that you have access to along the way? Are you utilizing every tool that's available to you to not only build wealth, but to allocate your money into places based on your risk tolerance that makes sense for you? So those are important conversations to have with your financial professional as well. And make sure that you're sitting down with your partner, your spouse, whoever it is. If you have somebody that's in that household with you, that set those goals with you, that's your partner in creating financial freedom for you and your family, make sure you're sitting down and looking at everything as a household. Make sure they understand where you're at. I have a ton of women I know who are the main person that handles the budget and the finances in the house, and the husband works and makes great money, but they don't like dealing with all the details of the bills and everything like that. And then I have a lot of people who it's the opposite. The husband handles the finances. It's not about who handles the finances. It's about you both being on the same page about what you're working towards and where you're at in the process. It's about that accountability. One or both of you might be spenders, and that might be creating an issue for you. So face that together. I always tell my clients, get your favorite drink, whether it's an ice water, a tea, a nice stiff drink, but sit down. I challenge my clients to do this every single month. Look back on that month and see where you hit the mark and where you missed the mark, and have some honest conversations about that. When you're addressing these things monthly, they can be smaller issues that you can quickly correct and stay on track with your goals. But definitely mid-year is a time to do a really good look at where your finances are at as a whole, but especially, are you on target with those goals you set for your year? So July, invest in yourself. Take time to look at your situation. If you're an employee, you have a job. Are you interested in some career development that would progress you in your career? Do you need to update your resume to look for new opportunities? Or maybe just brush up your networking skills, connect with people that, could be beneficial to you for your job, but especially as business owners. Those networking connections with other business owners can be a game changer. Connect with business owners whose clients fall into your ideal client scenario and vice versa, and create some good partnerships with other business owners where you can cross refer to one another. Practice mindful spending. Stop and think before you're purchasing anything. Set a limit. Maybe it's $50. Maybe it's $100. Maybe it's $500, depending on your financial situation. But be mindful before you buy those things that are wants. And I don't mean a pack of gum or an energy drink or a coffee. But if you're getting a coffee every single day that costs you $7, maybe I do mean a coffee, right? But look at those categories of spending where it really is wants, like I mentioned at the beginning of this episode. Or look at those big purchases you want to make. Does it make sense? Does it make sense to wait 30 days or 60 days? Or is it something that makes more sense to wait 6 months and pay cash for it, or whatever that looks like? Just think about what's in front of you and whether or not now is the right time to make that purchase. I know a lot of people who, if it's over $100, they required of themselves to take 24 hours to make a decision about that. Now, of course, if it's a want that you've been planning or saving for, and you're at the point where you've saved up enough, then go ahead and purchase it. If you're pausing at that point and saying, I don't know if I've been saving for this purse or this pair of shoes I've wanted, and or the new iPhone, the new Apple Watch, whatever gadget or gizmo it might be, I've been saving for this. But if you pause at the moment that you have the money you saved and you're wondering, should I really spend it on this? Then I would say step back, take an extra 24 or 48 hours and say, well, what could I do with this money if I didn't spend it on this thing? And just make sure that you're in alignment with what your goals are, the way you're building out your mindset, the way you're building out your financial habits, all of those things. Just give yourself a little time to make sure. It can really help you to be positive that that is an item you really, really want. All right, August. Okay, so now let's reassess our choices. Evaluate your insurance coverages. Are you set at the right amount? On your homeowners, on your car insurance, on life insurance? Should you be looking into disability or liability insurance? Any kind of insurance that you have, do you have the right amount? Or do you need everything that you have? Like, as our responsibilities financially change through life, those things adjust. Sometimes they increase to cover our financial liabilities. Sometimes they decrease because our liabilities decrease over time as our kids grow and leave, as a mortgage is paid off, etc. But take time to evaluate those. Y'all, listen, last month, my mortgage company called me and I'm thinking, why are you calling me? I made my payment. Well, they called me to actually tell me that they had just paid out the escrow on my homeowner's insurance for the year. And did I realize how much my homeowner's insurance policy had increased? And I didn't. I had not looked at the statement. And so The last couple years, I've had a lot of neighbors who have reshopped their policies because whoever they were covered with increased, in 2022, 2023. For mine had pretty much stayed the same, no big jumps. And so I hadn't panicked about it. Well, this year was bad enough that my mortgage company called me and said, look, you are falling short in your escrow account because your policy went up several $1,000s. And luckily, when they prepay it for the year for you, you still have the ability to call around, get that adjusted, find quotes, make changes if you need to, and then you can switch your insurance, have the new insurance submit to your mortgage company. And what will happen is when you cancel your old policy, they are going to prorate any amount prepaid that has not gone by. So if it was paid in October and it's now December, okay, 2 months of that's gone by. So they're going to prorate you 10 months of that premium back to you that you turn around and give back to your mortgage company. And then they pay that new carrier. So it goes back into your escrow. So I was so grateful that they took the time to call me. And I was able to decrease my homeowner's insurance by $4,000 a year by shopping it around. Now I'm very blessed. I have a veteran father and a veteran son, which meant I could make a change over to USAA on my homeowner's insurance, and it saved me quite a bit. So make sure you're looking at those things, talking to the people that specialize in those areas. Now, we do have a property and casualty division through Universal Wealth. So if you need some help tapping into some options there, definitely reach out. I can connect you with that team and see what kind of options they can find for you. The other thing is review your subscriptions. Oh my gosh, I tell people this all the time. Twice a year, I sit down and I review everything I'm subscribing to: television, music, apps and tools that help me with my business, all different kinds of things. And invariably, every single time, I have 3 or 4 apps that for whatever reason I was using quite a bit 6 months ago, but I'm not using as much now. Maybe I've found a new tool that helps me. And so I have the ability to cancel those subscriptions and save myself that money, because a lot of times $5 or $10 a month, even $15 or $20 a month may slip under the radar for a couple months before we catch ourselves and realize we're still paying for something we're not using. So every 6 months when I do that, I probably save myself a couple $100s a year by just canceling 2 or 3 things that I realize I'm not really using. And if I'm not really using them that often, but I'm still using them a little, I probably don't really need them. So make those changes and put some of that money back into your own pocket. All right, September. Take a look at giving back. Make charitable contributions and donations. What's important to you? If that's something that you have a goal of, is I want to give back more next year, be looking around at opportunities to do that prior to September. Go look at some different nonprofit organizations, or sit down and look at what goals your church has that they're raising funding for, or, giving to, I don't know what they call it. There's a name for it. It slips my mind, but basically giving to the fund at your church that helps families and individuals who might be struggling right now. If it's, a battered women's shelter, or I volunteer at Adaptive Training Foundation, which is an incredible program for athletes who are facing some kind of injury, whether it's a traumatic brain injury, possibly an amputation, a spinal cord injury, and they help these people to just defy the odds on what they've been told they would ever be able to do again. And it is an amazing organization. So whatever that is for you, that's important. If it's, ASPCA, or, shelters or rescue organizations for pets in your area, map out what you want to be able to give or donate to those organizations, and set those things up. Also look at, go through your house. At the end of summer, go through your house before the holidays get here and you just get more gifts and things you have to find a place for. Go through your house, clean out the closets, get rid of things that maybe are tucked away that could benefit somebody else that you're not really using, and give those to a local organization. I know here when I was struggling as a single mom for a couple of years, Frisco Family Services here in North Texas helped me in a couple of different areas. And so that's my go-to for donating those things. They have a resale center where they're able to sell those at no at a reduced cost, of course, but those funds go back into their programming to help people who are struggling like I was at one time. So their organization is near and dear to my heart. But find ways you can do that. Also, be tax smart about giving. Consider combining 2 years worth of contributions into one tax year, which can result in a higher itemized deduction in that year above the standard deductions. So definitely talk to your tax professional about how maybe something like that might make sense to you, or donate to long-term appreciated securities or investments that can allow you to avoid potentially significant capital gains. Another thing you can do is if you're in a situation where you're selling a property and you are facing potential capital gains taxes, or if you're getting out of an investment where you're going to have to pay capital gains taxes, before you pull the trigger in that area, sit with an attorney, an estate planning attorney, and talk about a deferred tax trust. Make sure that you're doing the right things at the right times to help minimize your tax exposure wherever possible. So talking to an estate planning attorney, also through Universal Wealth, we do have an estate planning division. So if you need some help in that area, I'd be happy to connect you with my amazing attorney partners in that division of our company to help look at what kind of options are there for you, what makes sense for you as far as that goes. All right, we're at October, so we're stepping into the holidays. At this point in October, be vigilant with cybersecurity. Make sure your passwords are protected. Make sure you're using the most effective passwords that are not easy to figure out what they are. So you're protecting your Amazon account, you're protecting your bank accounts, you're protecting your logins to all different kind of websites. And make sure you're protecting yourself from fraudsters. Look, almost every day you can turn around and hear different stories about scams that are going on. But as we get into the holiday season every year, people are so busy that we're not maybe paying as close of attention as we normally would as to what might be going on. And those are times that scammers, that dishonest people are out there trying to run schemes to take your money, take advantage of you. My parents are both, my mom's 80 and my dad's 83, and my dad will get weird texts or emails all the time. And the first couple of times he almost got himself into some scary situations, and we were able to handle those, but he's learned to come and check with me before he clicks on anything or responds to anything or provides any kind of information in any scenario. So be sure you're being diligent about that, and make sure that you're talking about that as a family, with your teenage kids, with your adult kids, with your spouse, on how you guys are protected, with the passwords you're using. Make sure that they understand the importance of that too. And make sure that you're aware of the different kind of things that fraudsters and scam situations will try to do. And hopefully you can help prevent becoming a victim of cybercrime, because a lot of those situations can take months and even years to clear up. They can have an impact on your credit, which means they have an impact on your ability to transact business and to take care of things that you might need to. So make sure you're paying attention to the ways that people can and will try to take advantage of you, and protecting yourself as much as possible. All right, November, we're focusing on family members. So how do we do that? Again, sit down and have conversations, especially with your adult children, about money. Y'all, I'm going to challenge you. If you have ever made a mistake financially, like me, when I moved out of my parents' house and they said, don't get credit cards and balance your checkbook. And I did the exact opposite. And so in my mid-20s, I was digging out of $6,000 or $7,000 worth of debt. Well, that may not seem like a lot, but remember, in your mid-20s, you probably made a lot more than you do in your late 40s, early 50s, like where I am now. And so to me, in my mid-20s, $7,000 was a ton of money. And it was all because I was making uneducated decisions. I was ignorant to the situation I was getting myself into and how compound interest can work against you when it comes to especially credit cards, revolving debt, if you're not careful. So have those conversations with your kids. Give them information. Tell them about the mistakes you made and the lessons you learned. Be open with them. If you're going through the year, like I've said, and finding ways that you can read up and learn more about all things financial. I think it was June we talked about that. Share the information you learned reading those books or listening to those podcasts with your kids. Refer them to the same sources so they can set themselves up, but involve them in financial conversations. And listen, start having those conversations about the legacy you want to leave and the way you want things handled someday. Start having those conversations now. Start addressing that estate plan. Get the documents and things in order, because we see all the time that, people die young. People are injured and unable to work young. People get sick young. None of us know our expiration date. None of us know what kind of challenges or health issues that we may face along the way. Just get prepared. Get prepared when you're young. It's cheaper. And two, when and if those things come up, then you have the resources to take care of whatever is needed. And if they don't come up, you're in a situation where, let's say, life insurance that comes with living benefits. Well, if you never have to tap into the living benefits, then that full life insurance benefit is there as part of your legacy to leave behind. So talk to your adult children about money. Update your estate plan. Make sure everything's in place. Make sure that you have a trust in place, y'all. A trust is the only way you're going to avoid probate. A will determine where your things are going to go, but they're still going to go through a probate process that can take months or years, usually require a family to hire an attorney because the information is so convoluted that they can't understand it all. Or you could get a trust and circumvent all of that. Okay? It can allocate where you want things to go, and it can also keep your assets out of probate and protect your loved ones. And then lastly, get yourself organized. Well, lastly for November, get yourself organized. Gather important documents in one place, including your tax returns, legal and estate planning documents, statements, bill of sale. Store them in an appropriate place. Have electronic and hard copies. You can have one or the other. I recommend you have both. Utilize a digital vault. Do some research on digital vaults and how you can load documentations there. What kind of protection and security is around that? Because if you have physical documents and they're not in a fireproof safe and your house burns down, those documents are gone. And it's a process to get copies of all of them if you even remember everything you need. So keep a digital copy of it somewhere. Keep a copy in a safety deposit box, maybe. But make sure you have copies of everything so that, God forbid, something happens to you or a loved one, you have access to everything you need, all the benefits that you have in place so that you can immediately start flipping the switches and things that you need to do to take care of any situation. And then finally, in December, prioritize your retirement. Sit at the end of each year and say, okay, what progress did I make this year? Where am I in alignment with my goals or my ideal picture of what I want retirement to be? I always tell people, if they're not in the habit of saving regularly, that our first goal is get them to where they're saving 10% on a regular basis. And once we hit that, then we're going to up it to 15%. And ultimately, I love the idea of helping my clients get to a position where they're saving 20% in whatever accounts and avenues you're saving, that you're saving 20% of your income. If you're doing that diligently And if you start it when you're young, you're going to be in a position where you can address any emergency. You can be confident by following those practices and connecting on an annual basis with your financial professional that you're in line with where you want to be for retirement, that you know if there's new products out in the market that might make sense for you, or if something you have is outdated and needs updates. Okay. So make sure that you're prepared and aligned with where you want to be in retirement, and sit down with your financial professional to expand your portfolio, or talk about some new options that maybe are things you hadn't thought of before. And then if you are in a position where you have to take required minimum distributions from retirement accounts, make sure that you do that. If you're 73 or older, you need to take withdrawals from traditional rollover, SEP, and simple IRAs. So make sure you're talking to your financial professional and your tax specialist about that. Pay attention to the provisions within any inherited IRAs. If you are inheriting an IRA from parents or things like that, they may have some different rules on how those distributions can happen and how they get taxed. If you're inheriting them from an aunt, an uncle, a friend, or whatever, those rules could be very different. I am not a tax professional. I am not a tax strategist. So this is not tax advice, other than to say, go sit with a tax professional and a tax strategist. If you're in the situation where you've inherited something this year, to make sure you understand exactly the situation you're in before you cash out an account or create a situation where you might have some increased tax exposure. So those are the different things. Again, y'all, I look at all different kinds of financial articles to get information, to learn more myself. And so this was a T. Rowe Price article called Make a Fresh Start in 2025, Your Financial Checklist for the New Year. And I just found it fascinating that they didn't just outline some things to start in January and carry forward. They actually have some good strategic things to look at each month, so that sitting down and looking at overall everything you need to for your finances doesn't become overwhelming and daunting because you feel like there's so much to do. It's kind of like deep cleaning your house. If you deep clean one room a year, then every room gets deep cleaned every single year, or every single 6 months, or whatever your schedule on that is. Well, if you take one or two financial areas of your life and you prioritize them in each month of the year, then they're all getting the time and the attentions that they need throughout the year. And you're less apt to be caught in a situation where you're off guard, you didn't realize something was going on. So grateful I came across that article. I was putting together a list myself, and I thought, let me just see what kind of things are out there. And I just thought that those ideas were phenomenal, and I wanted to share them with you guys. So look, I hope you got some value from this today. I hope you're excited about the new year. Don't kill yourself at the beginning of the year thinking you need to change everything all at once. Identify those goals for the year and then break them down into tactical steps you can take each month to build towards the goal you want to accomplish at the end of the year. I honestly believe you're going to make better progress that way. You're not going to slip as far behind that way if you're reviewing those things monthly and you're just adding a little bit at a time rather than overwhelming yourself and giving up on everything that you wanted to accomplish. So I want to thank you for joining me today on the Nickels and Dimes podcast. I'm your host, Natalie Kime, and I look forward to continuing to bring you amazing content each week that will educate you, support you, and help you to find financial freedom. I look forward to having you listen and learn in future episodes. And until then, take care and stay safe.